Hey, you remember the second touchdown that the offense put together in Detroit? Not the Cordero Patterson one that everybody's been buzzing about ever since. The second one. There's something I want you to think about regarding that play. Good morning to you. Good Wednesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Steelers. It comes your way bright and early every weekday if you're into hockey and or baseball. I also offer daily shots of Penguins and Pirates in the same place that you found this. It was a little inside handoff to LaMichael Perrine, reserve running back, in the game only because Patterson just came out, and just before that, Najee Harris came out. But it didn't matter who was carrying that ball because he went into the end zone just wholly untouched. No one was even near him. And if you're like me, when you saw the execution of that play, there was a lot of precision there. There was a lot of deception. And there was a lot of successful movement, meaning the Lions went everywhere they weren't supposed to go. But if you're like me, when you saw it, you thought, geez, really? Did you want to show that in the preseason? Like, I had kind of that thought with the Patterson touchdown, except that upon further review, that was more about exceptional blocking, in particular by Isaac Seumalo, than it was about a schematic. Also a really nice shift by Patterson there, too, as soon as he got to the second level. But that, I thought that was more about execution. The Perrine one was just gorgeous. I mean, the X's and O's of it were gorgeous. And you can imagine if the Falcons coaching staff doesn't already know Arthur Smith's tendencies well enough, they'd definitely be making mental notes about that play. But then, and this was probably before the ensuing kickoff, I thought to myself, well, wait a second. There's a zillion things that they've done out in Latrobe that are like this, or this effective, or this clever, or this well hidden, that they haven't come close to showing in exhibitions. So many, in fact, that it occurred to me that, man, this is actually going to be a lot of fun when they do start showing these things. Presumably in Atlanta. I can't stress this enough. When you go back to the last preseason and all of the giddiness over Kenny Pickett and the offense, what you saw, and it couldn't be clearer in hindsight, was a quarterback and an offense executing a vanilla offense against a deliberately vanilla defense. For those who don't know this, or you might be new to football, in the preseason, no one schemes for the other guys. All of your schemes are aimed at evaluating your own players and ideally getting them into the best possible rhythm at game speed to execute the plays that they want to make. They might point somebody out at the line of scrimmage, they might move here or there, but it's not going to be excessive, and it's almost never going to be something that's weighed in pregame. Well, the problem, of course, was that the Steelers' offense remained vanilla because that's the only flavor that Matt Canada knew. And what's more, the Steelers' many tells in that offense didn't hurt them in the preseason, whereas they killed them in the regular season. Tells like who would line up where based on this and this situation. Tells even on an individual level, like something that a certain player would do that would give away whether the play was going to be a run or a pass. You ever want to light someone on fire temperamentally in the Steelers locker room? Bring that stuff up with them. You'll hear words to describe that scenario that you'll never have heard before. One of the first things that Smith did coming into the fold this spring and summer was not only to assure his players that they weren't going to have tells, but also, and more important than that, to show them how they work. And on the practice fields, to have them live out why they'll work. I brought this up with Pat Freiermuth, who, by the way, is as passionate on this subject as he is about anything. And Freiermuth said there's no chance, not one play will be given away in 2024. So good. That fits right in with this whole storyline, doesn't it? They haven't shown much of what they're already practicing and what they already know, meaning in preseason games. And they're not going to be able to be read like a cheap paperback once the real games begin. And that's going to be fun. That's going to be fun for you. It's going to be fun for me to cover. And it's going to be a lot of fun for those players, because the one thing they've wanted to stress more than anything else, especially after those first 2 preseason games, is we haven't even shown you anything yet. When we come back, J1Q. This segment of Daily Shot is brought to you by our good friends at Mike's Beer Bar. They're located on Federal Street, directly across from PNC Park. Mike has more than 500 beers on tap, including from more than 50 local breweries. Stop in and say hello. Tell Mike we sent you. Mike's Beer Bar. Today's J1Q comes from Lazaro, who says, Dejan, my belief is that with the alignment of the Steelers' defense, you need a rotation of at least 3 outside linebackers, considering also that TJ Watt's had injury issues. This being said, the Steelers need either Nick Herbig or Alex Highsmith, so why not a 4th one on game day? Should this 4th one be DeMarvin Leal or someone else from the guys that have been around in the preseason? Well, I'm glad you brought this up today, Lazaro, because yesterday was cut-down day. The Steelers got to 53, and most of the depth chart, the way it was published and the way you go through it, even at a casual glance, kind of came out the way you thought it would. There weren't a ton of surprises. If there's one position on either side of the ball, though, that kind of leaps at you off the page, it is inside linebacker, because there were only 3 names under that subhead: TJ, Alex, Herbig. Now, we'd seen other players auditioning at outside linebacker through camp, through the preseason, even through Detroit. And we don't have to wonder whether or not the Steelers were satisfied with what they saw, considering Omar Khan did bring back, even if it was just for a couple of days, Marcus Golden in an attempt to resurrect his career. Golden opted to retire. So no, technically there isn't a 4th outside linebacker. Yes, I believe Khan's going to look for one. And those guys, by the way, they're more plentiful, more available this time of year, I believe, than any position other than running back. So there's a really good chance you'll see someone else summoned into the fold. That said, I'm really glad that you brought up Leal, because it means that people are starting to notice what he's done. Longtime listeners of this program will know that I've had kind of a Leal fixation for a couple of years. I've probably asked more questions about Leal than anyone else around, because I've seen what he can do physically, athletically. And I've wondered, and I've done this out loud, whether or not the Steelers just made a mistake in bringing in someone who seems to not fit their defensive alignments. Well, what do you know? Leal had, and still has, present tense, something of a clinic conducted for him on how he could play multiple positions, but still end up in position to produce similar results. That means he'll go inside if it means he can rush from the inside. Good pass rusher more than anything else, better than he is at run stopping. But he's also done a lot of lining up on the outside, so much so that the OLB guys are now kind of considering him to be one of them. Where that's going to go exactly, I don't know, because we've seen a lot of switching in and out between the linebackers. For example, you might recall from the Detroit game, Herbig stunting to the inside and very effectively getting to the backfield. That's something I believe that you're going to see a lot more of, including from TJ. But I'd say in an attempt to actually answer your question here, you're probably looking at Leal as the de facto number 4 OLB. But again, there's no doubt in my mind Omar's shopping. Appreciate the question. Appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Steelers. And we're going to do another one of these tomorrow.